How's everyone today? I did an experiment when I swatched all my colors on cards, somewhat Denise Soden style, but I wrote the names with a pencil. I couldn't tell different paints apart. Sorry. You couldn't tell, like, from which colors couldn't you tell apart? Hi Gabor, hi Paulo. Sound and video are good. Thank you. And this belongs here. A moment. Okay, let me start up my other screen so I can read you more easily. It's just ranting like always. Right, so I have a few Chromatic. Actually, I like a whole bunch of the greens. And to be honest, I'm not sure that I buy into their marketing with regards to what the paints are made of. It seems to me like there's got to be some other stuff that they're not mentioning. You know, like, yes, they might put jadeite in here, but is there something else as well as the jadeite? I don't know. Certainly there's a few things like the amethyst. The color of it just doesn't make sense for any kind of amethyst, where individual paint, like individual crystalline particles, would be nearly clear even in the darkest amethyst. So the fact that their amethyst comes out this sparkly dark deep purple indicates to me that there's some other stuff. I was at a conference where one of the Daniel Smith reps was speaking about how they go about making all the Chromatic paints, and I asked some questions and I did not get answers. So yeah, that being said, they do test as light fast, and there's a real challenge with finding nice greens with the properties that I want out of other more standard pigments and more I guess brands that are more open with their process. So, you know, I'm not sure that I buy into the hype about, oh, I'm painting with gemstones exactly, but some of them are really pretty. So, okay, and I want to now go to my channel and quality. Anyway, yeah, so Joy, I think, recently tried mixing jadeite with nickel azo yellow and got some really beautiful results, which of course always gets my interest, anything that mixes beautifully with nickel azo yellow. And got like a really nice range of natural greens. I'd been curious about jadeite previously, but hadn't really put much effort into looking into it. one concern I have with my current palette, this one, let's see if I can get more of this in here. Hi, Alex. Yeah, so in my current studio palette, I have a few greens. I have just a standard phthalo green, which is good for mixing, but I don't really use it on its own at all, ever. That's just a little too strong, and like vibrant bluish greens like this don't really, you're less likely to see them in nature, shall we say. I also have a perylene green. Let me get you some more light in here. Hi, Lise. Hello, Cyan. Nice to see you. Ah, yes. How's the pressure pot going? So that's the two greens that I have in my main palette. Now I do have a version of my main palette where I have one different green. Put away somewhere. Where did I put it? Too many palettes, guys. Actually, get it out from a different palette. Anyway, so that's the greens on my main palette. Now I do have some other palettes that I use that have a slightly different selection. So, for example, this is one of my travel palettes. And in this palette, I've got, this is a different Chromatic paint, but in this palette then, I don't know why this, I feel like my perylene got contaminated. It looks granulating, but it's not a granulating paint. It's like it's, let me just clean that up. It's doing it again. That is weird. I haven't seen that before. Maybe my water is extra hard right now. Anyway, so this is the green Jadeite Genuine, which I don't have in my main studio palette, but I do keep it on any palettes that I carry out of the studio. I find it very useful for like landscapes, woods and stuff. Another green I will sometimes use, and it has a similar downsides and plus sides to the phthalo green blue shade. This is the phthalo green yellow shade. So again, very similar, just a little too bright and bluish to be a color that you would commonly find on its own in nature. You can get very bright greens in nature, but usually they're more yellowish greens. And then you can get more bluish greens in nature, but they tend to be more muted. Okay, let's follow this conversation. I tried to do some microscope on the Chromatic paints to see if I could see any crystals, and the results were quite inconclusive. That's still very interesting. I would love to hear more about that. Cyan says, it is still leaking, and I don't even have any idea anymore where. I have redone all the fittings, greased seals, etc. Oh, yuck. I just need to clean my rinse water jars first. Every time Otto reads out Daniel Smith paint sales descriptions in her video, I am ready to bite a pillow. Yeah, that they're a little bit too poetic for me. Although there was color in the background, which for me, it was strange. Yes, so there's a bunch of the Primitex that do that, and it's odd. You have only 2 greens on your palette. Yes, I have only 2 greens on my main studio palette. And one of them is Perylene green, which is very, very dark. Daniel Smith tries really hard to be woke in their descriptions. I don't know if it's woke, really, but it's something. It's colorful. I think I only have a few Daniel Smith colors. I was a bit disappointed on Moonglow. It looked nothing in real life like that swatch on Jackson's. After buying that, I got into Googling swatching videos. I have a few Daniel Smith paints. They tend to dry fairly hard, and in the Canadian winter, we have to run heaters, so it gets really dry indoors. So Daniel Smith tends to not be the best behaved paint here. I tend to get along better with Schmincke, Holbein, even Winsor Newton in some cases. M. Graham, although M. Graham has some downsides. Like, they make some really great paints, but some of their synthetic organics just don't get along with my water or my process. What else do I have in here? Yeah, that's about it. Oh, Magello Mission Gold is also has some really nice bright paints. But the thing is, Daniel Smith does have like a very, very large selection. So there's a few cases where I'm specifically looking for, you know, a paint that's like this paint, but a little bit more X. And sometimes, you know, having a massive, massive, massive selection helps them be able to, you know, have the exact same thing that I want. So I have a few Daniel Smith paints. In this palette, I think it's really just the Primitex. And again, I'm not sure that I buy into the pigment nonsense with the Primitex. Like, it's possible you could get the same effects by just mixing more standard pigments, and possibly that's a huge part of how they do it. But anyway, what I do have in my palette, I really enjoy the Green Apatite Genuine, but it is it's a very assertive paint. So I love painting with it in the field. If I'm outdoors, I find that having that really strong separation can just create some really nice effects without me having to fiddle around too much and paint too many layers. But in the studio, it's a little bit much when I'm working in lots and lots of layers and doing more detailed work. However, I did want like a deep granulating blue, and I decided to try Blue Apatite in my studio palette. So I do have that in my studio palette, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to pull it out. Maybe sodalite is the answer, or maybe something else entirely. It feels a little bit gummier, like it doesn't have the same separation as the green apatite. And I haven't found it to be as useful a mixer as I'd hoped. Hi, Stephen. Allie says, Cyan, I heard you have to use a needle or toothpick and stir it in the tube before pouring it out, I think. Jadeite is also magnetic. You can separate the bright green from the magnetic black. Oh, interesting. I'm planning on buying a little bottle of glycerin and trying to test some things with certain tube paints I have that dry like rocks. Yeah, I mean, I've considered mixing in a number of things, like glycerin, maybe a little, but more so like honey might help. But to be honest, that's just a lot more work than, like, there are so many paint companies out there that make paints that behave the way I want them to behave, that's generally more trouble than I'm willing to go through for a tube paint. Golden Core were always quick to respond to any questions from me. Yes, they have excellent customer service over at Golden. Yes, yeah. They're very, very responsive and honest. One of my friends was talking about how she reached out to Golden at one point and was asking about core paints and asked for the properties of some paint, and the customer service rep at Core told her she wasn't really sure about that paint because she tends to use schmink more. Okay, all right then. I mean, thank you for your honesty, but like really, they're great. They reply quickly. They are honest. They give you all the information that you ask for, and if they don't know, they tell you they don't know. It's a little bit different where Daniel Smith will reply, but they'll reply with some of their form marketing, I would feel. Hi, sorry for having no manners. My puppy is biting my face and stuff. Hi, Ellie. Usually Kathy Jennings at Core that responded. I think that Kathy has now left and been replaced with someone, but I don't, to be honest, I haven't contacted them in a while. This is all secondhand knowledge. Anyway, so this is sort of the range that I have, like, in that same sort of family of colors. And I have a problem on my main palette where I feel like I want all the colors that I use, all the colors on my palette to be colors that I like using on their own, as well as, you know, are useful for mixing. So I pulled, for example, the green apatite out of my main palette. You know, I didn't put it in here because it doesn't really, like, it's kind of challenging to use it as a mixing color. So I didn't use this, but then I've got phthalates in here, which are nice, but to be honest, they're a little garish on their own. So they're good for mixing, but they don't get as much use as the other colors on my palette. so I wanted to give myself some other options. And so I'm going to clean out a little area and put just a dollop of my, oh boy, look, quite the mess I'm making here. And there's some dollop of something that I put up there before. I'm going to put just a little dollop of Jadeite and see how it works as both a mixing color and as I apparently can't speak and I'm single-threaded. I can't speak and do things at the same time. I'm going to try out some Jadeite and see how it works on its own and as a mixing color, and see whether I could potentially replace both the blue apatite, like just take out the blue apatite, and then replace the PG7 with Jadeite in this palette, whether that would make me a more flexible studio palette. And again, like I'm probably not going to do that right away. I feel like I've got paint in these wells and I'll just use it. And it's kind of nice to just use the paints that are available, but as they run low, it's nice to consider what would serve me better. I got an email from a mail, no idea if it was the European representative. Oh no, so much paint. Don't worry about it, it's just paint. It's fine. And it's just like it looks like more than it is because it's all spread out, right? Anyway, so I just made a little dollop here. Oh, that is pretty, isn't it? That's very nice. I wonder, like it could almost replace the Perylene too, couldn't it? That is gorgeous. It is more textured though. This is fascinating. I don't really want a replacement for the Perylene. Like the Perylene is such a nice color on its own too. So that wasn't the one I was looking to replace. That is really pretty. I can't paint and talk at the same time. I'll tell my kids to be quiet because I have to think. Yeah, I really struggle. It's like it's a skill that I'm trying to develop because it's useful for teaching, but I really do paint a lot better when I'm not trying to talk at the same time. Paolo says I can't paint, to be honest. Paolo, you're so hard on yourself. Okay, so here's the first test. So, everyone knows what my favorite paint is. Let's clean up this well a little, make sure it's nice and clear. But I basically use one yellow for everything. I tried to diversify in this palette. See, I gave myself a green gold and it's nice, but like most of the time, given the choice, I'll choose the nickel azo. My phone ringing? What's ringing? I don't, sorry, someone called me. So, and I use this PY150 to mix nearly all my greens. And so there was a time when I used PY150 and a pigment that I've taken out of my palette for light fastness concerns reasons. Is it you? What are you? You're the wrong thing, right? Is it this one? Yeah. Okay. So my green, the paint that I had the largest range of mixing greens from was Prussian blue. So this one's from Roman Schmal. I don't keep it in my main palette because a lot of Prussian blues, they're rated as having perfect light fastness, but in reality, it depends on processing and what they're mixed with. And a lot, like basically all modern Prussian blues do not perform like paint with perfect light fastness. Now, it is a little bit interesting because apparently a lot of that is reversible, where if you put the paint back into a dark closet, the color comes back, which is interesting, but it's not something that I'm interested in telling my customers. Like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. You can totally use this, you know, your painting is faded, but just keep it in the closet for a while and it'll come back. So I've stopped using it in most of my, like certainly in work that I'm going to sell. Now I have it hanging in my windows. I have a bunch of different brands of Prussian blue, and I'm hoping to find one that I feel comfortable using. But that was my first range of, that's the gold standard of the range of greens I can mix from 2 paints. So if I can find something that equals that, I will be delighted. That's what I want. I recorded a video about how the Chromatic paints re-wet. I'm uploading it to YouTube unlisted and send you the link. Why unlisted, Gabor? I get you, drawing is hard. Yep, it's a skill. Don't get your hopes up too high. My video recording is not great. Well, that's also a skill. I love green gold. I also love green gold. I find it fills a lot of the same niche as my PY150, so it doesn't get used as much. And before I discovered nickel lazo yellow, green gold was my favorite yellow for whatever value of yellow it is. Yes. There are a few things where I prefer the green gold, but it's, you know, they are less common. Just wondering where most people get their Daniel Smith paint from. I can't think of any sites other than Jackson's for the UK. For the UK, I don't know. I'm in Canada, so it's pretty widely available. Joy, hi. Your comment got filtered for some reason. Did you send me some inappropriate images? I don't know why it doesn't like you. I need to make you a mod so that YouTube stops filtering you. I thought I had made you a mod. I don't know what happened to that. See, Joy actually moderates my life. I don't know why my YouTube doesn't like her. Yawning isn't allowed. I don't know. My YouTube is prejudiced against Kiwis. Okay, so now we're gonna try how the Jadeite compares. Especially because this was your suggestion, Joy. I've got my... I really should have poured this out earlier. I don't like working from wet paint. I find it harder to control because I'm used to paint that's dried down. So like a blob of paint. Funny that you say that about green gold. I was just using it and pretty much started to use it with PY150 interchangeably. Yes. So they have very, very similar mixing range. Like they will mix the same greens pretty much. The nickel azo is just a little bit stronger. They will mix, in fact, a lot of the same colors if you mix them with like oranges and pinks as well. You'll get slightly brighter with the nickel azo, but not that much. Yeah, they're pretty interchangeable. The green gold is just a little bit greener, a little less bright. So you can't use it as like a yellow. It doesn't really look yellow. But it mixes all the same greens. And it has a lot of the rest of the same mixing range. It's a little less in your face overwhelming. So if that's something that you're interested in, then you might prefer the green gold. I've kind of gotten used to the in your face overwhelming, so I tend to reach for it. I was trying to diversify my yellow here, you know, because I get shit about only having one yellow, so I put another yellow. It turns out that I'm using them the same way. So the Jadeite was an exchange, or was my sexy Jadeite swatches responsible for breaking the low buy? Kelly sent it to me. You see, I said I wasn't gonna buy things, but I didn't really take into account how easy it would be to get people to just send me things without buying things. I am exchanging stuff, so I am sending her some stuff in exchange. So it's not completely breaking anything. Yeah. Do y'all follow Dina Tollefson? She's an artist on YouTube. She does fun challenges and invites people. I don't. Ellie, are you on my Discord channel? I don't think you are. Can somebody drop in a Discord link so that Ellie can put in links there? Okay, so now. Let's see what I can do with, oh, this is gonna be pretty. I can tell. Oh, look at these mossy greens. Nice. Oh, that's some really nice, bright, oh my goodness. So I usually can't get greens quite that neon-y with Nicolazzo, so that's promising. Now on the other end, let's see, got some darker greens. That's really nice. That is very, very nice. Oh my goodness. My brightest yellow green is from mixing PG36 with PY154, but I usually like PY129 better. So if I just want a bright green, I have other paints that I can use. And I just don't keep them on my like main palette for a variety of reasons. But chief among them is I don't frequently need greens this bright. Cyan, I think you would love this. These are like, it's not showing up as bright. Let's see if I can bring some more lights down. Like it's showing up more yellow on the screen than it is can I get this here, this, but these two they're like neon green in person. It's actually stunning. Yeah. So obviously this is a very different range than you get from the Prussian blue, but I really love it. And that this eliminates, like if I add this to my palette, I'll have to rethink a lot of this because this eliminates a lot of what I use a bunch of my colors for. Yeah, you do have to click invite to get the link. And then ideally click through so that it's a permalink. Anyway, that's gorgeous. I really like that. Another thing that occurred to me was this might be interesting as like a starting point for a neutral mixed with something like an orange. So if by neutral I do mean like an earth tone. So if I take a little bit of this, get this dollop here, I remember what I hated about YouTube, uploading and processing. What takes so long dealing with a 2-minute video? It is pretty stunning, isn't it? Sorry, people had asked about like brightest greens. So honestly, this one is giving me a run for my money here because I struggle to get a green that bright out of any mix. The fact that I can do it with PY150 I thought was impossible. It just, because it has a shift from mass tone to tints. So in tints, Nicolazzo yellow acts as a greenish yellow. But in mass tone, it can tend to look a little bit more brown, a little bit more golden. Which means that if you're mixing it with a blue and you want it to be a yellowish green, you're going to be putting a lot more of the yellow in, and so then suddenly you end up with something that is less neon green. So I don't need them super often, but sometimes when you have like a sunlit spring leaf, you do need, you know, even in nature, you will have something that's quite neon. And what I use for that usually is bismuth yellow. So I don't keep this on my main palette for a few reasons. One of them is my cat drinks my paint water, and I know it's terrible. I don't like it either. She's decided that my paint water jar is the ideal drinking container for cats, and he's even learned how to ring it. If the paint level, if the water level isn't at what he wants it at, or he doesn't like the color of it or something. So he'll come up on my desk and he'll ring the rim of my paint water jar. I don't want my cat drinking toxic paints. Bismuth is not the best chemical. So I avoid letting him at that. So that bismuth with one of the phthalo greens, and honestly they end up pretty much the same. In this palette I have a phthalo green blue shade, phthalo green yellow shade, maybe mixed slightly brighter greens, but it's very, very close because the phthalo green blue shade is a stronger green. It's stronger tinting, it's brighter. So the fact that it's a little bit bluer seems to sort of cancel out in small quantities to make neon greens. So then that makes some really, really neon greens. And okay, so actually putting them side by side, the bismuth is still a little bit brighter. But only just, like, it's really close. And it's also more opaque, so these ones would be more useful. I mean, this is pretty promising, to be honest. So take out like half the times when I crack out the bismuth. What yellow is this? This is bismuth yellow. This is, what's the name? PY184, I believe. bismuth vanadate in some brands. I don't like phthalo blue that much because of the difference between dry and wet is very big. You might consider phthalo turquoise, which is similar, a little bit more greenish, but it doesn't have as much of that shift from, just generally, not as much of the dry to, like wet to dry, not as much of the mouse tone to tint. Well, I can tell you that with big shepherds like Ruka is the problem of drinking from the toilet seat. So Neuron did that at one point, but so here's the thing, he also pees in the toilet. So when we moved into this house and we have two toilets, we have an upstairs toilet and a downstairs toilet. He only uses the downstairs one. We have a kitty washroom that's only used by the kitty. And then, so he'll pee in the toilet. He'll poop not in the toilet. That's a separate issue. But he'll pee in the toilet downstairs. And then for a while he was drinking out of the toilet upstairs. It was like, just wacky. Why? Stop. He doesn't flush though. That's one step too far. Natural greens if yellower than lighter and stronger if bluer than darker and duller. Yep. I mean, to be honest, I'm not, like, some people will say don't start with a phthalo green just because, you know, you can mix your greens from blue and yellow and, you know, use primary colors or something. I don't subscribe to that part necessarily. I do mix, like, I have a lot more blues on my palette than I do greens, and it's only because I find them more, well, partially because there's just a lot more blue pigments to choose from, so there's more range available, partially because they're also useful for mixing things like purples and things, partially because of the blue pigments available, there are more blue pigments that I find attractive on their own versus the green pigments can be a little bit garish in the case of the phthalos, for example. I am not of the opinion that you can't start with a green in order to mix more greens. I do think that if you just have, you know, one natural green, whatever that is, if you paint all your greens with the same sap green or the same olive green or the same whatever, even if that's a perfectly good green, everything's going to look unnatural because nature always has a lot of variations in greens and we're used to seeing that. So if we see just one flat type of green, that looks jarring to our eyes. So one reason to always mix from blues and yellows is that you will automatically always get a slightly different shade. So you won't fall into the trap of all your greens are the same sap green. What about the green that everyone hates, chromium oxide green? Do I have that handy? I don't have any handy. I don't hate it. It's very opaque, but it's useful. It's just very opaque, so if you're going to be doing something with a lot of layers, you know, you have to take that into account. But it has a nice sort of powdery texture. if you're painting a lot of like succulents and like cacti and things have this sort of powdery finish to them, and the way it mixes with yellows, for example, it'll deposit down in small particles, but they're heavy, and it gives it that sort of powdery look. So if you know what you're doing with it, it's great. If you're just looking for basic mixing green, I think that one would be challenging to work with. That's why YouTube wants to ban you. Do you have olive green or the Daniel Smith sap green? I have many things labeled olive green. I don't have the Daniel Smith sap green, but I probably have the ingredients it's made from somewhere. The question is just, where did I put my home supply of genuine quinacridone gold? It kind of has the same kind of dusty, powdery feel as the My Merry Blue Sepia, maybe? Yes, yes, exactly. Only green. Yeah, very much that. Some kinds of like yellow ochre also behave that way. I have the Winsor Newton olive green, very similar to the sap green when dried. Yes, yes, it does. Okay, so the other thing that I was curious about with this jadeite, okay, before I forget, actually, I'm going to wash out this jar because it now contains bismuth and cats. Commonly called chrome green when used as a pigment, however, it was referred to as viridian when it was first discovered. Isn't it, I thought it was a different form of viridian where it's oxidized or something. Like it's one step off from what we currently know as viridian. How old is that pigment? Chromium oxide green is quite... They have the same formula, CR203. What can change is the amount of waters. Sorry, Paulo, can you explain that? Okay. Copper sulfate. Okay, so I was wondering what this would look like mixed with orange. Like, can I make some interesting browns? And these are interesting. I think they might be a little bit on the, I don't know, poopy side. Okay. Well, this sure is interesting, but I don't know that I would be using this particular mix too much. Okay. Well, that didn't work out quite how I'd hoped. But maybe if I mix it with, this is Da Vinci Carmine. Try adding a bit of PY150 to that mix. I'll do that next. So this is Da Vinci Carmine, which is then more of a red. It's like sort of a muted red. It says it's carmine. It's actually PV19. It's a quinacridone rose sort of variant. Just a little bit more muted. I do not want to answer my... Yeah, my phone rang and then it interrupted my stream. I'm not cool with that. Like, I tried to decline the call so that it would stop vibrating my phone, and instead it disconnected my stream. Not cool. If I put that here, at least the phone is clever enough to cut the stream during a call. I don't like it. I don't like it. Okay, so then here is my... This is why I don't like working with wet paint, is to like manage the level of water because it comes up sticky. Sennelier paint always does this even when you're okay. I bought a book on pigments. Yes, which book? I like it when it rings because it's like an alarm for an emergency art system. Well, a new one. Thanks, phone. I hate it. Yes, exactly. That is exactly my feeling right now. Oh, that's pretty. Hoo-hoo. Like this is going to neutralize, but it's going to make some really interesting things in between, isn't it? Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Okay. Back. Welcome back, Sam. So I like this a lot, but I especially like the shades that are a bit redder, where it's just got a hint of the green. Like that's a really delicious shade. Ooh, I like it a lot. That's like what I wanted Perylene Maroon to be. Perylene Maroon is lovely, and Perylene Violet, but they do have this downside that they sort of they fade down, they dull down, and this has a richness. Ooh, okay, so that's really neat. I like that. The Anatomy of Color, the story of heritage paints and pigments. Cool. I made muffins with mascarpone toppings today. Cyan, can you post pictures in the Discord, please? The third row looks like art all on its own. This one here? Yeah, it is kind of nice. Gina says, hello, Lee. I enjoy your live art. Hi, Gina. Is this Daniel Smith paint? I have a new set of White Knights. I love them. I am testing out one new Daniel Smith paint, Jadeite Genuine, which one of my viewers, Kelly, sent to me. But I am also just mixing it with a bunch of different paints that I have on my palette. So yes, but not only Daniel Smith. Oh, I did not post it on Discord? Maybe. I don't know. I haven't checked in a little while. Maybe you posted it on Ev's Discord, but not mine? That's possible. Which Perylene Maroon do you have? On my current palette, I don't have any. In general, I believe I have Da Vinci? I might have one other as well. I definitely have Da Vinci. Yes, so I'm wondering, what if I mix it with PR101? Ah, not in my coffee. Let's put this where I won't mix them up. Okay. If I mix it, so this is transparent brown iron oxide. This one is also from Daniel Smith. If I mix that here. Ellie says, have you seen that Target is selling swatches as art now? No, I'm in Canada. We don't have Target anymore. But doesn't really surprise me. I have a Carmine that's PV19, but it's bright. This one? Yeah, the Da Vinci Carmine it's an interesting paint. And I've had an interesting experience with it where I used up the majority of a tube of it without realizing that I was using it at all, which, you know, that's uncommon because it goes a long way with watercolor paints. So the fact that I got through most of a tube before realizing, like, I guess I'm using this paint, it's uncommon. So this will make some muted darker greens. Oh yeah. Yeah. Like this is like some like deep forest moss stuff. While at PR 101, can it deal with the strength of Indian or Venetian red? Where do I hide my Venetian reds? Are you a Venetian red? You're sort of like a Venetian red. Give me a moment. I'm going to say probably yes, and I'll test that next. It's pretty strongly tinting. Like it. Hey. Looks like the Carbamine clobbered the Jadeite. The mixes all look pretty red to me. Okay, that's not because the Carmine clobbered the Jadeite. It's because I liked the red mixes more than I liked the greenish mixes, so I mixed more of them. Winsor Newton Perylene Maroon is one of my new colors. I love this one too. Winsor & Newton Perylene Maroon is brighter. Like it holds more of its wet characteristic than most Perylene Maroons. Most Perylene Maroons double down more. Sorry, I think I missed Amisha coming in and saying something. I got my new paints today too. I've already swatched them and made a couple mixes. Mars Black and Cobalt Teal is gorgeous. Mars Black and Cobalt Teal is fantastic. I love that mix. What watercolors do you think are the best professional? I don't, is the short answer here. I use a mix of brands. Different brands have different selections of paints. Different brands have completely different pricing depending on where you are in the world. So I shop by pigments. I like the colors, the paint properties that I want. I'm not too fussy about brands. Now, as you get used to your paints, you might develop some preferences about paint behavior. So for example, Sennelier is a perfectly good professional paint brand. They have lots of lovely colors. I don't particularly like using them because the way they dry down, they have a sort of sticky characteristic, and because I paint from ceramic, I will often do a thing with a small brush. Let me actually demonstrate this. Wait! What did I just drop? Something. Doop, doop, doop. Sorry. Trying to find an appropriate detail brush. Here we go. So here I have a little detail brush. This is a Rosemary & Co. Series 230 10-aught. This is a tiny, tiny little brush. And what I will do with tiny, tiny little brushes like this is I will go into an area of paint that's dry on my palette, like here. And with a barely damp brush, I'll pick up the exact color that I want, and then I can paint really fine lines, like I can just draw them on the paper, like so. And the problem with sticky paints, and I can demonstrate this with the wet jadeite, the problem with sticky paints is that if I do this on a paint that's sticky, so in most brands this only happens when they're still wet, but in Sennelier it happens all the time, is that then I get either a very dark mix or it gets sort of spotty. And actually this one's picking up really neatly even though it's partially wet. But Sennelier doesn't do that so well. It's hard to explain. It pulls on the brush and then it's hard to get the color that I want. So that's a personal issue based on how I work with my paints. But that being said, Sennelier is still a perfectly good brand and lots of other artists love it. And the paints are perfectly good quality. In terms of the brands that I find behave well for my climate and the way that I paint, I find that Daniel Smith dries a little hard. Graham has some issues with my hard water, but anything from Schminke is usually fine. Winsor Newton's usually fine. Although sometimes Winsor Newton can dry a little hard. Mid-Jello Mission Gold is great. Holbein works great. Da Vinci works great. Yeah. Just like, so I have paints from all different brands here. was interested in seeing magnesium brown PY119, which I don't know a lot about. I don't think I have it. So I can't, you're gonna have to find it somewhere else. Not for me. I don't own it and I'm not buying anything. Anyway, apparently I had like a little clump of stuff here, so I'm just gonna, well, that was messy. Oh, not asking you, okay. I have PY119 from Winsor Newton, not a color I would use in watercolor, a nice light warm brown. Okay, sorry. Next question. We had some thoughts about like Venetian type colors. So this one is Caput Mortuum, I believe. Yeah. This one is Caput Mortuum from Roman Schmal Aquarius, which is another wonderful brand. Their paints are amazing, but they only come in full pans and they're sort of hard to, they're not super widely available. So this is one of those colors that's like super strongly tinting, pretty opaque. And then if I grab some of the, put it here maybe. Don't get me wrong. Never found a lot of, I'm not buying any for bid. I've bought so many pro and cheaper. I love them all. Yep. Paints are great. Love paints. Kelly, we're testing your paint. The stuff you sent me. Thanks, Kelly. So if I mix these two together, I can get some. So they cancel pretty nicely. I think I can, this makes something like a very, very close to a black. I add some more red. Get some more of that in there. So this is another one of those colors that has a very, like a powdery finish too, like we were discussing with the chromium oxide green, where you can use it similarly. So apparently there's a chrome black too, which is also the same chromium oxide as the army green version. Okay, and then I can get that there. Yeah, so that had no problem. Like if anything, the Jadeite is pretty easy to overpower that Venetian red, which is pretty impressive because those Venetian reds are pretty, I mean, this isn't, sorry, this is Caput Mortuum, but it's the same, it's like an Indian red. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so quick tip for those looking to get into gouache. Think twice about the Schminke Academy gouache if you plan on re-wetting anything. Thanks for the tip. There we go. Is that better? let's see how this mixes with cobalt teal, because everything mixes beautifully with cobalt teal. You are me. So this one is, what do I have here? I think this is the Winsor Newton one. Schminke are way too expensive for me. Well then, don't buy Schminke. Yeah, Schminke are, it really depends on where you are in the world and where you're ordering. If I if I were to buy them like from a local store in Canada, Schminke would be ridiculous. I have in the past bought my Schminke mostly from Jackson's Art in the UK, who have good prices on them generally and then run frequent sales. Once as I finish my tubes, I will be moving into Horadam, like Schminke Horadam or Senlier. Washington, yeah. I was thinking about the 5 paint starter from M. Graham. That sounds like a great choice, Stephen. I only shop on Amazon. Well, then buy the paints that are available to you. Yeah, a lot of this, like, you'll see different artists recommend different things, but like you don't need to use the same brand as they're using. Just realize that like different brands are going to be wildly different prices depending on where you are. So, you know, if you live somewhere where Holbein is like really widely unavailable and you see some cool artists in Japan are doing some really nice things with Holbein, like you can get the same pigments, the same similar paints from another brand that's cheaper where you are, that you don't need to use the same things as other artists. Okay, let's get some of this paint out. Yeah, still got some of the red. Let's get it out. In the US, Schminke would probably be prohibitively expensive to me too. Yeah, I mean, it really, really depends on where you are. Here in Canada, like, we're importing pretty much any paint, right? So all paints we buy locally are going to be expensive. So as a result, the M. Graham's pretty good. But if I'm going to be buying, I frequently end up ordering online and just waiting. Anyway, so Jackson's Art in the UK has been my source. I've ended up getting a lot of Schminke, and I'll just, you know, when they have their watercolor sale or their Schminke sale or something, then I'll buy some from there. But I certainly wouldn't pay the prices that they regularly go for in Canada for most tubes, most things. It's just not, you know, they're good paints, but they're not the only good paints. There's lots of other good paints. Yep, well, everything looks good with cobalt teal. This makes some interesting minty colors. Okay, so that's that. I do buy a lot, but if I got new paints for every art video I watch, well, I'd have an art star in my small apartment. Oh gosh, yes. Yes, I have gone down that road. Not every video, but, you know, more than I need. Be right back. I have some kitty issues to deal with. Good luck with your kitty issues. Over here, everything is expensive. Well, some of us can definitely relate. That is definitely the case in Canada. I believe Joy will also be able to relate to the everything is expensive. I imagine everything is even more expensive in New Zealand. So I try to find sales. Yep. I've been painting since 1995. Only last 2 years I got Amazon Prime. It's great. Yeah, it's especially great if you're in the States. PBK 11, PG 50, PBK 31 are those pigments you can't go wrong with. That is, yep, those are 3 wonderful pigments that I like very much. Australia, New Zealand, and Brazil sound brutal regarding art supply pricing. They do, although I have to say I went to Australia a couple years ago. And they were pretty on par with Canada for a lot of things. So, you know, I'm used to Canadian prices. I went to Australia, some things, not art supplies, but like surprisingly alcohol was a lot more expensive, and I thought that Canada was crazy, but nothing like Australia. Like really, really wild alcohol prices. Some of their like food and entertainment things are really expensive too. Art supplies are about on par with Canada. But I believe that New Zealand has it harder. At least in Australia and New Zealand, they have their own brands. That also helps. But like for the selection was different. Where they would be more likely to have some of the Asian brands. I can't really follow links. Can someone give me a summary of what Paula just linked? Yeah, so the thing with Brazil is their import taxes. They have 50% import taxes on everything. And then shipping to Brazil is just like crazy, crazy too. So to get anything imported is very, very expensive. And so that really, it completely turns over their market is bizarre there. Where like locally made things can presumably be a lot cheaper, but for some things like you're not going to get locally made pigments. So somewhere along the line it has to be imported, and the moment you import anything, 50% taxes, and it's an excise tax, so it's actually 100%. Like you pay double. And then it's not a very wealthy country, so it's just, you know, compared to the average income there, it's absurd too. Chroma flare is a pigment used in paint systems primarily for automobiles. When the paint is applied, it changes color depending on the light source and viewing angle. Ooh, goes from green to purple. Goes through blue as well as orange. Interference paint. Lovely. Was it Rembrandt? Rembrandt and Van Gogh have some interesting effects paints that they introduced recently. Yeah. Yeah, Daniel Smith does have some interference colors, but Rembrandt and Van Gogh just introduced some like wacky chameleon paints. Yeah. Rembrandt and Van Gogh are the same company. Like, Van Gogh is the student line. I have their black box. Is that the effects paints box? The effect is tame compared to this. I wonder if that's just the thickness of application because the paint film in watercolor is so thin. Right, Royal Talents is the manufacturer. That's right. What time is it? 4:01. I might tape off a little area and do some kind of painting with this jadeite stuff. Yeah, maybe, but it is a crazy effect. I always wonder how to use that too. I mean, part of it is like consideration, given that, sorry, putting this up here maybe. Okay, so if I put tape this up. Over here. Let's use a nice bright green. You don't need fancy supplies to paint. Like just whatever your budget is, you know, get a few paints. If you can't afford, like, just get a few paints. If you can afford like 5 or 6 professional paints, then get that. If you can't, then get 5 or 6 student grade paints. You can get some really decent student grade paints for like $3 a tube. And just get a few of them. Like, you don't need a massive selection of paints. I have this crazy selection of colors and I'm just pulling out whatever people ask for because I like experimenting, but when I'm actually painting, usually I'll only use a few colors at a time. Interference paint would make interesting water droplets. Maybe I'll make a video on painting water droplets. Not that that's something that I have huge amounts of experience with, but there are a few different methods that I've tried. So I might do a video comparing them. Turn it into a blog post. Turn it into a blog post, turn it into a book. I have the box, but I never even used them. My goodness, Pablo. More painting. More painting, less shopping. The boxy is very pretty, isn't it? I looked at that and I was like, I don't need interference paints. I'm super boring. They wouldn't scan well, but I did like it in a box. So true. Yeah, I mean, this is what's kind of nice about the no buy or the low buy. It is a low buy. I mean, it's not that I'm not buying anything at all. Over in Ev's Discord, I was talking a little bit about some, well, at least one wacky purchase I made recently. So it's not that I don't buy anything, but I will say that in general, my life is not made better by shopping more. My art is not made better by shopping more. Yes, book. I heard that from across the kitchen. Joy, like, yeah, this is some were your ears itching thing. There was some talk about painting water droplets. I feel like that's a thing that goes in a book. It definitely goes on a blog. And one thing I've discovered is that I can use this live stream to make blog material. Like my blog, often I put in some supporting images, diagrams and things. And so I think I'm gonna do, should I use the Jadeite alone, or should I use Jadeite and one or two other colors, do you think? Like I could just do a monochromatic thing with just different saturations of the Jadeite, like so. I now have 25 colors, but I got most of them one tube at a time, so I got 40% off on each tube at my local big box craft store. Bleh. Made Winsor Newton Series 1 paints about $5 for 5 milliliter tubes. Well, that's the other thing, is when you're starting out, like, I tend to buy paints in 15 milliliter tubes, but I mean, I'm also a full-time artist. I paint as my job. Most of the paints I buy at this point are paints that I know I'm going to use. I'm quite familiar with my paint preferences, and I also know that if I don't use them, I know people I can pass them on to. So I buy large tubes. It is sometimes cheaper to get a pan or a smaller, like a 5 milliliter tube. You know, you don't need to invest in a lot of paints. You don't need to buy a big set. You don't need to buy let's get this one a little bit darker. Jadeite plus other colors, but they all must have Jadeite mixed in. Okay, what other colors do we want, Joy? Or other people? Who wants to name what other colors I'm putting in my palette? Time to give me a wacky challenge. I might have bought the core mini set. I love the Core Mini. I don't use it that much. I find it a little bit like it's a great travel set, but I find it a little bit overwhelming, the paint behavior for how I paint on the go. But I really do like the layout and the color selection. So, you know, I have a soft spot for it, even though it's not really my most used palette. Okay. What am I painting? What other colors? I'll be waiting for that grandma palette video. Oh, well, yeah. So this paint may have had something to do with that too, with that weight. Orange. Okay. Like this transparent orange, you'll get this range. Do we want to do a secondary color palette where we have orange and we also have, say, a purple? Like here's a quinacridone purple. Yeah? Oh, sorry, let's put this somewhere where you can see it. +1. What's up? What's my +1? I'm fine with just secondaries if we want to do that. All right. Sure. Jordan, huh? And 1 moment. Jordan. Jordan. Can you come here for a moment? Oh, okay.
What do you need?
So I'm painting with a limited color palette, and so I chose secondary colors, and then somebody suggested I add 1, +1, and I said, well, what's the +1? And apparently I'm supposed to paint with you.
With me?
Yeah, you're the +1.
I'm not a color.
You're not a color.
Yeah. Normally a painter. I'm a D&D player.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
PY 184 for +1, so that I can get some bright greens. Sure. We can do that. I'm shocked Jordan isn't a color though. I mean, to be honest, like I have synesthesia, so I associate people I know with colors gradually as I get to know people. So it's not like a really clear line, but people I know really well do have a color. And to be honest, the blue apatite isn't far off from my Jordan color, but I don't think that really adds much to my color range here. Like I can just mix that color from the purple and the green. Okay, so What am I painting? Do we have requests? I can pull something from the Natural History collection. I can find a reference, lichen. Okay, I have a lichen book, and since this is a sketchbook, I'm fine with copying-ish. All right, lichens of North America. I could do this front cover thing. Or do we want something with a brighter green? Brighter green. Okay, we'll find a brighter green. One moment. Here, let me pull this over this way. Put this down here. Oh. Okay, let's find some brighter green. Yeah, there's some green there. Oh. Some more yellow. Oh, this is pretty cool. Here, let's bring you down to see this. How do we feel about this? Okay, so that's got some oranges and bright greens. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's see. I put that here. I put this here. And then I bring you in to yes, well, okay. And I guess I'm probably actually going to sketchbook's too long. Okay, guess I can just put it here. That's fine. A little bit more. Bring these here. Okay. So I'm gonna have to be reaching over quite a bit to. No, you know what? I want to rearrange things even more. It's always awkward, like trying to get everyone a good view and also have access to all the things that I want. Okay, so let's bring this down, bring this up. Push this over and there. So you won't see my palette, but I promise I will use the colors that you selected. Okay, next I'm going to take one of these. Oh, no, actually, you know what? That's a bad idea for this, for a video. You know what? Kelly also sent me some really nice Palomino black wings. So I'm also going to use some graphite. like the one on the left. Yes, the one on the left of the same page does have some really cool colors too, but this one I think will work well with this color selection. And given, you know what, I'm also going to plug in this phone so that we don't get disconnected, but given that it's actually getting, you know, relatively late. Yep. And you casually throw in a black 142. Well, you can thank Kelly for that as well. I believe the black 142s have a slightly harder lead than the classic Blackwings. Somebody wants to confirm or deny that for me? Gotta go, friends. I'm pooped. Hope everyone has remembered to like the stream. Thanks, Lise. Thanks for stopping by. I just dislike that they don't grade the graphite into pencils. Yeah, I mean, I find that's a little tough. Or like at least have, you know, some kind of, like I realize that the grading is not consistent among other brands either, where like an 8B might be a different thing depending on which brand. You know, one brand's 8B might be more similar to someone else's 4B or something. There's definitely variations between different, like it's not standardized at all, but I would still like to know something that's like really clear on the pencil rather than having to look it up and see some marketing descriptions. But nonetheless, they are nice pencils. And Kelly was very generous in sending me all these really cool things. Good. They look good. Yep, they are real nice pencils. So the lichen here is identified, but there's no identification for the little mosses as far as I can tell. Nonetheless. I told Mom how Kelly supplied the Jadeite green. This made her very happy. What a nice community. I am delighted with the watercolor community. And just the community of artists I've found locally, and both locally and online. Like, it's just, you all are so wonderful and so helpful and so supportive. It's really, really cool and really, really nice, because we all have, you know, days when life is hard. Seems like we all live in the same YouTube echo chamber. I feel like there's a few little communities on YouTube, like a few little sub pockets, and there's definitely some overlap between them, but they're not all exactly the same. I wish there were more people I could talk in person in my town. I wonder whether there are, pal. Like, it's sometimes hard to reach an art community. Like, I know that I felt quite isolated, and then I started up my studio, and I found a little community through that and really gotten immersed in the local arts community, but like that took some time. Need to hit the bed. It is late. I'm tired after all the tightening and opening these fittings on the pressure pots. Thanks for stopping by, Cyan. I know it's really late there. Good night. Same. I think Dan is the closest geographically to me, but even he lives around 200 kilometers away. Whereabouts are you, Gabber, within the UK? Because there's a few other people in various spots. Like, I think that, what's her name? Katie Hanna is also some couple hundred kilometers away from Dan, and potentially in the same direction as you. Yeah, that's why I want to attend the watercolor workshop at the Botanical Gardens. Yeah, so I feel like there's a lot of people around the world. I mean, it's tough, especially with COVID now, but I feel like there's a lot of people around the world who are doing their thing and feeling kind of isolated, and it's difficult because this is the sort of field where, like, your work is individual, right? But that there are, in fact, a lot of different people who are doing similar things or have like overlapping interests who can be found. It's just, you know, it just sometimes takes a little bit more doing. On the public internet, let's stick to Southern England. Okay, that seems totally fair. Sorry, you do not need to tell me exactly where you live and what intersection, whatever. Are there many things more cute than watching a small cat wash and stretch? I mean, that is pretty high up there. At the same time, I get that feeling you will be the worst there, which kind of makes me freeze. Aw, Paula, don't, like... First, you won't. You know, there's always a range of different skill levels, and you are better than you think. You know, having seen your work specifically, but also just like everyone who is more experienced than you, was once where you are now. You know, that's just the nature of developing skills. So nobody's going to judge you for, you know, developing skills a little bit later than that they did. Like, they all remember being in that spot. People are always delighted to share their own experiences too. Like, it's not... I had decided to go this year, and what happens? Lockdown. It was really frustrating. Yeah, I'm quite over this lockdown thing. It's been a year. Like, okay, well, you know, we've learned a lot from this. Can we kindly move on? On botanical art. It sounds really nice to go to a botanical garden. That's, you know, in my dream, okay, in my fantasy dream life, someday, the next few years, I would like to buy some property further north in the woods, maybe in Quebec, and build my own house. And I'm really, really, really looking forward to building a house with an attached passive solar greenhouse. So that's another little YouTube community that I'm slowly reaching out to. But I'm pretty sure, like, I've done some of the calculations, I'm pretty sure that I could achieve, like, without, so the only supplemental heat would be I'd put in a wood-fired hot tub in the greenhouse. But I'm pretty sure that without any further supplemental heat, we could there's a singing a specific song about small insects. Feel free to link it though. I'm pretty sure that we could achieve a subtropical climate, like USDA zone 9-ish. So that would be equivalent to like a New Zealand climate, or like parts of Australia, like the southern US, in like coastal southern US, or you know, Central Europe, Mediterranean, but more humid, in a greenhouse, so year round. So I would be able to grow things year round, which is just wonderful. Like, I would be able to grow things. I'm pretty sure I could get that space to where it never really frosts. Like, it might sometimes hit 0 or just below 0, but with some little bit of additional, like, just lights or the hot tub, I could just make sure that it never really stays below 0 for any length of time. So it would get a little bit colder on winter nights or when it's really, really overcast in winter. Lee wants you all to have a specific song about small insects stick in your brain. Yes, I'm gonna have you all watch National Film Board of Canada shorts. Something I learned from a single local watercolor event was that while I may not have all the skills yet, there were some things I do reasonably well. Well, that's the other thing, right? Like everyone has a different skill set. And so there's like, no matter where I go, there's always like, just because I can learn things from other artists doesn't mean that they can't also learn things from me, right? Like, there's not just one track to learning art. You can learn things from each other. I think it's really, really valuable to like, and I'm saying this as a painful introvert, it's really, really valuable to connect with people. I used to watch them a lot when I was a kid. Black fly, the little black fly. Anyway, so what I was going on about with my greenhouse is I am looking forward to building myself my own greenhouse that I can step out of my kitchen into a greenhouse. It'll be a lovely 20 degrees Celsius, you know, a bright spring day when it's January and it's freezing cold and it's -30 outside. I'm really, really, really looking forward to this, and it's really, really, really doable. So for those of you who don't know, my educational experience is not in watercolor, it's not in botanical art. My educational experience is in civil engineering. And I specialized in building science, so sustainable buildings. I worked doing some residential retrofit consulting for a while. And actually, I still take those jobs occasionally. I avoid it, but you know, I have friends who ask for advice sometimes. I'll do a couple hours of consulting here and there. Friends and log rollers waltz. Not friends, neighbors. The Black Fly song. Oh, I see. The reason that Joy hasn't linked it is because Joy isn't a mod on this channel. Right, because YouTube hates Joy for some reason. YouTube wants us all to be sad and be deprived of joy. It's very unfortunate. And okay, Joy. So. Joy, even that got filtered. I don't know why YouTube hates you so much. That's ridiculous. What have you done? What have you done to YouTube? Why doesn't it like you? This is interesting. Why isn't this bringing me a bright green? I wanted this to be a really bright green. You guys. So here, I'm gonna pick up my palette and show you something. See this? This is what happens when I mix the bismuth yellow with the jadeite, is it doesn't come out as bright as mixing it with my PY150. So what do you want me to do about this? Finally off the clock. Celebrate the PY150. Hey, is victorious yet again? I mean, I am always happy to do that. Hells yes. But like, I wanted a bright green and I thought that it would be brighter if I mixed it with bismuth. It's not, so I guess we're gonna just, we're just gonna use PY150 because it's just clearly a superior, it would also actually probably work with green gold. Use PY150 and jadeite. Okay. Well, I don't know. Green gold is more muted, so it might not work with green gold. This is so weird. It is so weird. Okay. Like this is mixing a much brighter. Okay. All right then. We're just gonna add more. Okay, so first I'm gonna start with a medium brush, I think. And this will do. So that goes there, and you know what? I'm actually going to start with a bright big brush, and I'm going to cover the whole damn thing. Because all the parts can be covered with this bright green. And then I'm just going to pick up some areas in here. They're going to be a sort of deeper thing. Just trying to add some variation here. Top one looks brighter to me. There does seem to be a difference between how this appears on screen versus how it appears in person. Because in person, it's like not even close. Watercolor does this sometimes where, you know, if you scan it or if you show it on a screen, it just doesn't pick up quite the same as what you see in person. In person, there's like, again, it's not even slightly close. I'm wondering whether it looks to me like in this larger area, it might be closer to what I see. Like bismuth with phthalates are definitely brighter than anything I can do with PY150, which is why I have bismuth, one of the reasons anyway. But for here, the bismuth mixes just looked kind of dull, like I couldn't get them yellow enough and bright. I could get them sort of powdery greenish, but not, yeah. I would have dropped in the more yellow to brighten the green instead of painting around. I'm not sure at what step you said that, Gabor. Again, it might depend a little bit on yeah. You might be right that that was a better choice. It might depend on exactly what I was doing at the time. I'm trying to build up some of the contrast that's going to show up in the final. Okay, so that can dry for a moment. But I mean, keep in mind, this is also just a background. Like a lot of these areas are going to be more orangey, and I do want to still keep that wet look. So I do need some areas that are almost white. And then I might actually just add some opaque white highlights. I usually don't get the results I envision, so I tend to doubt my technique, not yours. Well, there are a bunch of different ways of achieving similar painting, and then there's also a bunch of different ways of interpreting one reference image right? So just because I'm happy with mine doesn't mean that yours is wrong. Sorry, Alex, is this a tutu's life goal? Because I can help you with that. Here, let me show you something. Here is a beautiful thing that hangs over my mirror in my studio. This is my wedding veil, and what it is just a bunch of ribbons attached to a hair clip. Now, obviously, this wouldn't go in my hair now because I keep it quite short, but I had long hair at the time. But it turns out that you can do this and you just fasten the ribbons around a belt and it works like a tutu too. So if you want to specify some colors, I will make you a tutu. And then I'm just gonna darken up some areas here. Well, also, where are you going to wear a tutu? It's sort of a it's a goofy thing, isn't it? Also, I promised to make you hats for babies, and I've made like half of one, so you know. Just gonna mail you your stuff that's not the hats, and you know, maybe someday you'll get hats, or maybe not. If there's stuff from my art collection that you'd like, my art supplies collection, please tell me, because I am trying to declutter right now. Using a photo in a book as reference and sharing on social media, do's and don'ts. Don't sell it. Don't sell prints of it. Don't sell reproductions of it. Credit the photographer and book. Like, don't make this out to be your own photo if it's not. I would have personally, I might have some issues even just like sharing this on something like Instagram. I'm okay with this on YouTube because, again, it's very clear what this book is. There's no chance of somebody taking this photo and like taking my scan of my artwork and then using it, crediting it to me when it's not really mine. There's a concept of like transformational art. So if it's far enough away from the original now, as that applies to me, I wouldn't say that what I'm doing in terms of like changing colors or changing like a very slight little bit of the composition would count as transformational. But I do sometimes use references from books or from the internet. The guidelines I use for myself is if this is something that I'm going to sell the original or sell reproductions of, then, and that includes like if it's a commission, if it's not my work, then I can use photos strictly as reference. Like photos are a good way to understand how a plant grows or how a cat, you know, what is the anatomy of a cat and what does a cat look like when he's curled up or whatever. If I don't have a live reference or, you know, I have some questions because I have only one cat and I want to see what a different cat looks like. So try to get multiple references. Don't just copy one photo. Try to combine things. So if I have a bunch of different references and I'm painting a cat, I could paint the pose from one of them, the color from another, the lighting or background from a third, and then that would be transformational. And then I wouldn't worry too much about, you know, yes, I used other people's images, but I didn't, you know, I was using them to understand cats. I wasn't using them to, you know, steal their artwork. With this, I mean, I'm okay with this again because this is about showing process. I'm very clear about what I'm taking from this book. It's then in a sketchbook that I won't be selling prints of. I might not share this image, this finished image, on something like Instagram though. Or certainly I wouldn't share it. If I did share it, it would be like I would find a way to include the book in the post. Like I might do I might do something like what you see on the screen, where you see my hand, you see the image, you see the image I'm referencing. I'm very clear about where it came from rather than here's a scan of the painting. But I also recognize that I can be a little bit obsessive about like making sure I'm not copying. I know that some artists take a more relaxed approach or do fan art or whatever. There's personal comfort levels at play there. Okay, next. So there's some little mossy bits that are a brighter green all through this background and popping up. And I think the easiest way to get those in is to use a little brush and paint those in and then paint around them. Yeah, I mean, I think with using references, it comes down to intent and understanding. Like the other big thing for me is understanding that, photography is an art form and that's something that somebody put a lot of time into. So like, how would the photographer feel? Are you going to be cutting into their business or are you going to be directing more people towards them? If you're going to be directing more people towards them, towards the creator of this book, for example, you're not selling the piece, you're not selling the anything, you're just saying, here's a really awesome book and it has some really awesome photographs and you should buy this. And I'm using this to learn more about lichen. I'm comfortable with that. Whatever the exact legal distinctions are. But I would not be comfortable with just Don't worry about it, honestly. If you're decluttering and wanted to do paint stuffs, we can. If you wanted to hold off, also okay. Well, the thing is, I'm gonna send you two. Like, I just don't want to forget that I still owe you two paint tins that you paid for. So I'm gonna be sending you a package, and I had been holding off on those because I was gonna make you hats, but I just haven't been feeling like knitting recently, and so I don't know when that's happening, but I would like to send you your hats, and I do have a bunch of art supplies that I could send you as well. I contacted a YouTube landscape photographer for permission. I got a very kind response with permission. I think most photographers would be happy. Yes, absolutely. And you know what? If you have a photographer and you've spoken to them and they say, yes, I would love for you to use my photos, then cool. That's also fine. And sometimes if I do have a photo where it's like, no, I'm gonna reference this, but I'm like really heavily gonna reference this. Like I'm not just using this, to understand my subject. Like I think the composition is great. I think the whatever is great. I'm just not gonna change it very much. And I want to post it somewhere. Like just personally, I don't know that I would feel comfortable selling that. And again, that's just me. Legally, it's fine. But one thing that might happen is if I have a commission, and that it's something that I don't have access to as a live subject, and I need to paint it for a client, and I find a reference online that's just right, like the whatever, and I get permission from the painter, I might try to compensate them somehow. And that can be as simple as, would you like a print of my artwork? Would you like me to, not that paying people in exposure is great, but would you like me to promote you on, say I have a larger platform than they do? That is totally cool. If the artist is fine with it, just recognizing that that photography is an art form. So if you wouldn't do it to another artist, like if you wouldn't take my, I mean, there are people who do that too, so, you know, that's also a concern. But if you wouldn't take my painting and copy it, then give a photographer the same consideration. But, you know, I am totally okay with you using my painting as a reference. It just, you know, don't copy it exactly. Though I was asking for the scenes from the video, not the end results. Those wouldn't work for my style, but the scenes he walked past and the B-roll compositions. Right, yeah. Yeah. So that, you know, that's another thing where that is a transformative thing often. Like that's how it's considered, is if you're transforming something from one you know, you're transforming something from a still image into a video or vice versa. You're transforming something from black and white to color, or you're really pushing, like you're really changing something substantial about the work, then that follows completely different rules and you just do whatever you want and is protected. Okay, next, let's get some purple up in here. Yeah, it really looks purple here. I swear to you, I'm using purple. It's just... There we go. I'm not good enough to copy anyone else's work. Hell, I can't even make my own stuff looking alike. Well, again, it's just intent and good practice. But also, like, if you're painting for your own practice and you're going to hang it up in your own house, then you don't need to worry about any of this. Copyright really comes into play when you are sharing work in a commercial setting. So, you know, trying to sell it. Trying to sell it or using it to build your business. So like, even if I wasn't selling this specific piece because it's in my sketchbook, I wouldn't necessarily want to use it to sell other pieces, right? Because this is somebody else, like somebody else put the effort into finding this subject and photographing it in a nice way and setting up this composition and whatever. I just opened it up to a page and like, yes, here's this thing, it's nice. How would you mix a color like Jadeite? It feels like PY150 and PBK31 can get close. Yeah, I mean a PBK31 plus, even a PBK31 plus like a phthalo green would come close. I'd use PG7 and PR254. Yep, that would also work. Although it is brighter, like it is brighter than, it is more yellowish than anything that you would get in the range from PG7 to PR254. So you need to find a way to get that bright green. You can see it as it separates out. So I think that's what's making it work, to make these bright greens with the PY150, and also perhaps why it's a little difficult to get it across on camera is because it's actually the undertone from the green itself that's coming out as it separates. I don't recommend a site like Pixabay either, as they don't validate the uploader. Well, there's that too. And then see about, so if I take the orange and bring it out here, orange, more orange, yep, a little bit more yellow, oh, orange, right, okay. Well, this is another thing where if I was doing this for a real painting, I might use some masking fluid to get these lines properly nice. But I do not like masking fluid, so I'm not going to use it in sketches. Just never going to happen. Let's see about getting some brighter greens in there, though. Let's do that. And here, I'm just gonna to be honest, I've really been enjoying doing these live streams because, sort of by their nature, I have a tendency to get caught up in my work. If it's like, oh, well, you know, this is a finished piece for a show. So when you talk about those ugly stages, like, keep in mind you are seeing me at my like least stressed out about my work. I would tend to be more so if I were working on paintings that aren't just in a sketchbook, but this is a chance to just practice things and experiment and work in sketchbooks that, you know, I know that aren't gonna, this isn't something that's gonna be shared. This isn't something that, it's not a something that I'm trying to enter into a Jadeite exhibition. It's not. YouTube painter Tim Wilmot always seems to go through an ugly stage, then completely save it at the end of the painting. I mean, it definitely varies. Some pieces go through more of an ugly stage than others. I've definitely had a few where it's just like, oh boy, I don't know where this is going. The nice thing about sketching is it does sort of relieve some of the pressure of that, where, you know, I'm not going to restart this. I've been known to sort of panic and restart things sometimes with more finished pieces where it's going to be longer until I reach a spot where I'm comfortable assessing it, I guess. When I have a painting that is looking bad, I just start playing with paint to see what happens. It never saves the painting, but I learn things, and that makes it not a waste. Yeah, so what I do with sketches is I just, like, I'm okay with them turning out bad, but I do try to save them, and it has sort of woken me up. I still sometimes panic with, pieces that I'm more attached to. Kill your darlings thing. But it's definitely helped is to do that, these sketches, and realize that, like, a lot of things can be saved. Just because you're not happy with it right now doesn't mean that it's not good and that it won't look better when you're done. I just got dressed. Technically, I'm wearing PJ bottoms, but with compression tights, so it totally counts. That totally counts. Good job, Joy. I'm proud of you. I just take a long time to do stuff, and that bothers me, but I have to live with that. Yeah, I mean, doing anything well takes time, right? It's been interesting adjusting to doing art full time because art was always my relaxation. Again, there's this saying that I hate that you do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, and that is nonsense. You do what you love and you'll put your every fiber of your being into it, and you'll be way too attached, um, way too invested. It's get anxious. Um, yeah. This has always been what I love to do, but switching to this is work, it has a way of spoiling some stuff. But I will say that definitely these live streams have been really nice in some ways for opening that up. Like, what am I doing today? I didn't know what I was painting earlier today. I knew I was doing a live stream, and I decided this morning that Jadeite would be nice, and maybe I'll paint something, whatever, it'll be fine. Hey, you could be doing large washes with watercolor pencils, or with colored pencils. ah, ah. That's like almost as bad as laundry. I need to go and interact with the other humans in the house. Bye, Paolo. Have a nice evening. Yeah, see you tomorrow. I'd rather keep my hobbies as not work, but I did enjoy my work in a garden nursery. Yeah, so like there are upsides and downsides. I'm really glad that I do keep my hobbies as work. Like, I don't want to seem like I'm complaining about that. It does keep me motivated in a way that, if I do something that I just don't care about, I struggle much more to do it well. So, it's good that I've got it all mixed up, but I think you've run out of moderators. Have I run out of moderators? That's too bad. Need to find some other moderators. You know what? If it's a problem, then I'll deal with it. I think we can probably do fine. If I need to recruit my husband to keep an eye on the chat, I will. And then I can always add people as moderators later, which I need to do. But I specifically let myself decide whether or not I felt like gardening in my downtime. Yeah, I mean, the thing is I've had to find other ways of relaxing that aren't painting, and also find some kinds of painting that I don't do as work. And even that can get a little mixed up sometimes, where like I took up urban sketching to have another outlet, but then I've been asked to teach classes on urban sketching, and I've done that. But it's still different, right? I'm not selling urban sketches as a main income stream. Nor do I have any intention of doing so. I do sketchbook projects, I paint portraits, I do whatever that I don't share anywhere, because I'm keeping that separate. And then I've picked up. I do have a tendency to, like, no matter what I'm doing, sort of tie it back in. So I started kind of picked botanical art as my niche, and then I picked up gardening. And they are, they're different, but they are related. And so it's tough to keep things separate, but such is life. Do you find it easier to work on small scale like now, or bigger? I would do this on a much larger scale to have more room to make the happy accidents. That's an interesting question. I find it easier to work on a somewhat smaller scale. But easier, as well as I really do like taking in a little teeny tiny brush and like painting, little squiggles and stuff. That's where I really lose myself and find I have fun with it. So even when I'm painting larger, I do then descend into, well, I'm just going to paint even more details. But that being said, in terms of like finished pieces, I do like working much larger than this, because I like the look of a piece that has impact from far away, and then you come closer and you see more of it. They work on multiple different levels, but I do find that I find a lot more stressful. There's just like more ways it can go wrong, right? The larger it gets. Besides, Leah's painting is large scale for me. I mean, at one point it was for me too, and then I forced myself to go really big, and now I find this really small and kind of constrained. But this is ideal for for a sketch. And I realize, like, I say sketch, and then I spend more time on it than some people would spend on their finished pieces, and that's just personal preference. For me, I would go for A4 or 9x12 for such a detailed practice like this. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, it also depends. Like, I might choose to, if this was my own reference and I was making a complete piece, I might choose to make this much, much bigger, but then I would still be putting in the same level of effort with this 10-aught brush. So, you know, it would take me much longer. And I would really love that impact. Like, you know, that is something that I am looking forward to doing. I need to sort out my grants I'm applying to. There's just a limit from each granting organization about how many I can apply for in a time period. So I need to decide what I'm applying for when. But that is definitely a thing that, yeah, like I sorry, lost my train of thought. Definitely interested in doing more larger pieces, but in terms of like what do I find easiest? Well, I mean, there's obviously just less labor involved if you're going to be going down to the same physical size of brush, but you're going to be doing it on a much smaller scale versus, you know, doing something much larger. So some people are just happier, you know, they're just happier working with a bigger brush, and so then they get the same level of detail, but on a larger scale, just by using bigger brushes. The truth is, I know that I'm gonna go down to the tiny, tiny brushes no matter what. So I like working big, it's cool, it's great impact, but it's not less work by any means. I'd love to paint quiller size, but I don't think I have the knack. You know what, I've tried a few like really large scale things, just sort of to stretch myself out of my comfort zone, where it was like a less detailed piece, and that, you know, I think I'm pretty happy with. But even this, you know, I've been on for over 3 hours now. I'm having fun. I'm gonna keep painting, but I might actually end up closing this up and revisiting it next week, at some point. Whenever my patience runs out, basically. My internet seems to be behaving today. Just, you know, small miracles. A lot of landscape techniques don't really work on small scale. Quarter imperial is very ideal size for a simple landscape. Yep. Like dropping paint into a damp area spreads the same amount. You can't tell if that it is a smaller scale. Yeah. I mean, okay, you are definitely, like, you've definitely done a lot more landscape than I have, Gabor. So like, I don't want to correct you on landscapes because you definitely have more experience with that. But like, even with landscapes, you know, here is a landscape that's about the same scale. works. It's just more of a like little thumbnail of a landscape, right? But it's about the same size as my here. So I like, even with that, I imagine it's probably personal preference and there's no wrong answer. There are botanical artists who prefer to work on a really, really huge scale. And they kind of go crazy on their first washes, and then you know, either they do go into detail and they just like working on that giant scale, or they don't, and it's just something that has an impact from far away. I just like, I know that in terms of what I like doing, I like sitting and staring right into the little teeny tiny details, and yeah, there we go. Here are some greens, greens, and then some little oranges, orange. Have you kept experimenting with the casein-based paints? I intend to, but I've only done that one painting. Yes, but a different style. I like faraway tree lines that are easy to do by dropping thick paint on damp paper and let it spread and feather out. I didn't manage to scale that down. Okay, yes, absolutely. So some techniques are going to work different at different scales. That is absolutely true. And you just find, you know, the scale that works best for you. All I meant was, you know, I don't know that there is a specific scale that is correct for any category of art, whether it's botanical art or landscapes or portraits or whatever. Like, you can paint a portrait large, you can paint a portrait small, you can do little miniature portraits. Like, that's going to depend on the individual. But you know, if landscapes, if you prefer to work in landscapes and you prefer to work a bit larger, that is absolutely awesome and great. We agree again. Aha, yes. Sometimes we have very enthusiastic agreements. We talk past each other a little bit, but we actually agree. I am going to get a snack. People want to stick around for just a moment. I'm gonna go grab myself some cake and some water. But I am having a lot of fun here, and my phone is plugged in, so I can keep going for some time. I know that it's getting late, but maybe I'll catch another audience. I'll be right back. Check out my cake. Delicious cake. My mother-in-law made it. It's feather cake. It's got coconut in it. Ah. Bye, Alex. Bye, Joy. appears the stream is getting quieter. See, I'm just painting. So stream can get quieter. And we'll see. Maybe someone else will pop up. I just found my happy place. Kelly, you've been quiet for a while. What's new in Kelly's life? I like to practice guitar while watching these streams and maybe paint a little as well. That's great. Nice little social thing, a little bit of productivity. Tomorrow I need to finish the sketchbook drawing in Dan's sketchbook, pour tube paints into pans to have a pan from everything, and update the paint spreadsheet. Sounds like a busy day, because you also have a meeting with me. And a workout session. Very busy day. Well, tomorrow and Sunday are my last 2 days of freedom before, Joy has made me a schedule. I joke about freedom, but actually I'm really looking forward to it. So instead of having to decide, what am I gonna do at every hour of every day, which, I'm not the best at, and is just an extra worry. Joy has made me a lovely, lovely schedule where I get alarms about, I'm gonna get up and then I'm gonna make coffee and then I'm gonna exercise and then I'm gonna work on this thing and work on that thing. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what effect that has on my productivity, because I suspect it's gonna be awesome. Hi, Box of Paint. Yes, I've been on that. YouTube really has failed you. I've been on for like 3.5 hours. Is Joy your life coach now? Yes, she is my manager. She's my life coordinator. They look really great. She's making sure that I eat and, take care of myself as well as getting some productivity in. She's been really thoughtful. So we'll see starting next week how that plays out, but it looks really fantastic, and I'm really excited for that. I gave up on being productive. I tried many things and failed every time. Now I just do things or not. Well, so the problem is between some chronic illness issues that really knocked me out for part of last year, and then the pandemic. I've really, for a while I had that, yeah, well, I'll be productive or not, but I've really been the more than not recently. So I needed some help to get back to a level that I'm comfortable with. And so Joy is helping me with that by taking the, the decision and the judgment and the whatever and that difficulty out. I don't need to worry about so many things. I can just... there's still a lot of flexibility in terms of, she's not going to tell me how to paint. She's not going to tell me how to write a blog post. But it's just nice to have time blocks for things. And then within that, I can do things like how I want to do them, but I always have plans and schedules, then replans and reschedules and repeat the process. Well, right. My problem came in with both like keeping up the habit of making schedules, and then inevitably things will disrupt them. Like I get a commission and that needs to disrupt it, and I've been pretty bad about, when I do have something that disrupts it, making sensible choices. Joy, I'd given her the example of, sometimes I'll have a schedule where I make sourdough, and obviously that's not important, right? I can always make sourdough a different day. I don't need to make sourdough. But say I get a commission, I'll still see, oh, morning, I make sourdough, and then I'll start that, and then I'll, miss things that are much more important, like eating or appointments or whatever, because there's just not enough hours in the day. So I don't adjust well on the fly. And so having something that's time blocked in for, and if a commission comes up, this is what drops. Things are prioritized. And it also helps just on the level of sometimes things don't get done in their time block, right? Say I've got an hour to deal with emails. An hour goes by and I've got a bunch of new emails and I haven't handled them correctly. And I think everyone can relate to, you just get caught up in doing things that maybe aren't the most important and you should move on to something else, but you just want to finish that task. And so part of what she's done is she's created time blocks where, well, if this isn't done when this time block is done, it doesn't matter. You still have to do that other thing. So that's the end of the email time block. Try again tomorrow. Which is something that I had done for myself to some extent before. But it really helps when it's someone else saying it. So part of the advantage of Joy doing these things for me is that Joy is not me. I go through swings of so many ideas and plans, and then it flips, and trying to accept that that's just the way I'm wired. Right. So for me, part of accepting that this is the way I'm wired is trying to find ways to, I am happier if I am doing things to a huge extent. And there's a clear pattern to what my life looks like when I'm doing things, and I have a time blocked schedule. 15 minutes is a little intense. Joy sent me some reminders that are, now you have 5 minutes to stretch, or go make yourself a tea or something, that are just an instant reminder, like go do this and then come back to your current task. But most of my time blocks are an hour or two. Outside work, I try to get one thing done in the evening, either a drawing, painting, or exercise. Weekends are a bit better. Yeah, well, so that's the thing, is like outside work, right? Because I'm self-employed, outside work, like it's everything sort of collapsed, where I wasn't getting as much work done, I wasn't getting as much personal stuff done. I was just like, really, I just needed some external help to get me back on track. And it looks like Joy is really, really, really helping me with that. So really excited about that. Accountability can make a huge difference. Yeah. So there's two sides to that. There's the accountability of like, I have to have weekly or bi-weekly check-ins with Joy, telling her like, this is what I've done, this is what I've not done, this is what I'm going to need time for. So it would suck to have 3 meetings in a row where I say, I haven't done my email, so more likely that my email is going to get done. The teeny tiny one. This is a 10-knot Rosemary & Co. Series 230. Bye, Kelly. So there's the accountability, but then there's the other side of that, which is letting go of guilt. This week, I'm still the president of the Botanical Artists of Canada. This week, I was supposed to attend a meeting, and I was exhausted, really overwhelmed by it, and it was causing me a lot of stress. And so I checked in with Joy and said, I really don't feel up to this. And she told me, don't do it. Don't go. And just having someone else to make that decision, to validate that decision, it helped so much. And it meant that then on Monday or Tuesday, when I was supposed to be at this meeting, I had one of my most productive days that I've had in quite some time, because I didn't have this thing hanging over me, and then I didn't have the decision of, backing out of it hanging over me. I love a schedule, but also rebel a little against them. I think everyone loves a schedule and everyone rebels a little against them. If I have an actual timeline for my day, I get so much done. Else I sort of spin my wheels with could do, should do's. Yes, exactly. That's the thing. And so, there are various ways of getting to that, but I kind of lost my way. It was certainly never my strong suit, and a bunch of things made me really kind of collapse the last little while. So I'm really excited to have an on-ramp, shall we say. Yeah, guilt really sucks. Just like not a great feeling. Why do we do this to ourselves? You've lost. Oh, okay. Good. Everyone's focus is all right? Y'all see what I'm doing? Are Rosemary & Co. brushes available other than from Jackson's? I hear a lot of good things about them. I ordered them directly from Rosemary & Co. Lana says I need to go to bed. It was a great stream. Love how detailed the lichen looks already. Thanks, Lana. Good night. Sleep well. See you tomorrow, probably. Oh. I need a restart button too, so I can restart myself some days. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? Like, I didn't like that last little bit. reset. Especially if I could reset some parts of my body that are acting up, like, you know, brain. Digestive system, could you not? Our garden was a little neglected after the cats arrived, but went out to make a plan. My little moss garden has thrived in the odd weather. Oh, that's nice. Sleep is maybe the closest to a reset. Yeah, I wish. There's something wrong with my sleep signaling where I just sleep and like I sleep real well, but I seem to require like an infinite amount of it. The more I sleep, the more I want to sleep. Would be real nice if I could sleep and then, you know, catch up on sleep and not need to sleep again for the rest of the day. That would be cool. Again, I think that a lot of this is just a reset thing where it's just going to help to have someone else telling me what to do and like, no, it's not sleep time. Good night, Escaluna. It's got little stems poking up like it had flowered. Oh, little moss and bryophyte stems are adorable. Sleeping well sounds like an alien idea. I mean, the thing is, like, I wake up well rested. Granted, it takes like 10, 12 hours. I sleep a lot. But you know, that would be fine. If it was like, okay, well, you know, you're recovering from something, so you just need more sleep. But then I wake up and then, you know, that time when I'm not sleeping, I don't just get exhausted. But I do get exhausted even when, you know, I've been getting 10 hours of sleep for the past long while. I wake up well rested. Sorry, I know these streams have this bad habit of me turning into me complaining about my health. That's really not the goal here. I miss being healthy. My body and my brain have a disagreement about whether I'm a night owl or not. I have trouble getting to sleep, or I have, not recently. Recently, it's been great. Recently, the meds make me fall asleep the moment I say sleep. But I have in the past had trouble with falling asleep at night. And certainly when I'm up, I just like late at night feel like I want to just be up. And then in the morning, I never want to get up. But the truth is, throughout my life, I have discovered that I am most efficient, I am brightest and most awake first thing in the morning. And the earlier, the better. Like if I'm the odd time that I've managed to drag myself up at 5:30 in the morning, oh my goodness, I'm just the most efficient person on the planet. It's really too bad that I'm never up at 5:30 in the morning, because that's an ungodly hour that shouldn't exist. Speaking about flowers, I hope tomorrow will be nice weather. The magnolia on the balcony started flowering. It also volunteered for a photo shoot. Ooh, nice. My last place in Texas was on a road that had them in every. Nice, 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 nice. Yeah, we're a few weeks away from that here. Okay, well, I am getting to the point now where my brain and my body are kind of willing, but my lower back is beginning to scream at me. So I think I'm probably going to cut this short. I'm gonna cut this off pretty shortly. And I'll just get back to it next week. I can work on this next week. It's been fun, but this has been quite a long stream. Four-hour mark. How far? Oh, we're like 2 minutes off from the 4-hour mark. Yeah, sure. We can wait another 2 minutes. Yep, well, that's quite the crazy long stream, though, isn't it? 4 hours? All right. Okay, thanks, everyone. It's been loads of fun. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And I'll see you again next week. Seeing Homer and tropical trees. Oh, well, I'll take it. Thank you so much. Bye.